God just told a frightened man to walk into a stranger's house and heal the hands that had been signing death warrants for people just like him. That man almost said no. This is the story of Paul, but we are not going to start with Paul. We are going to start with the man God asked to forgive him first. His name was Ananias, a quiet believer in Damascus, the kind of man history never bothers to remember on his own. He kept his head down. He kept his community safe, and he had heard the rumors traveling north from Jerusalem faster than any caravan. A Pharisee named Saul was coming, with letters from the high priest in his hand and a list of names in his mind, and everyone on that list belonged to the Church of Jesus. Ananias had every reason to be afraid. So did everyone he loved. But before we get to the knock on that door, we need to understand who was coming, because the man riding toward Damascus was not a villain in the way villains usually look. He was brilliant, devout, convinced, down to the marrow of his bones, that he was doing the right thing. He was born in Tarsus, a wealthy crossroads city where Greek philosophy and Roman law and Jewish faith all collided in the same marketplace. His family were Pharisees, not the casual Sabbath-only kind, but the kind who measured their spices and washed their hands by exact ritual, who treated the law of Moses as the very breath of life. Saul did not simply inherit this faith, he devoured it. By the time he reached Jerusalem, he was studying under Gamaliel, the most respected rabbi alive, a teacher so honored that students traveled from across the empire just to sit near him. Saul did not just sit near him, he outpaced his classmates. He would later say, without exaggeration, that he had advanced in his religion beyond nearly everyone his age. So when a new movement began spreading through Jerusalem, people claiming a crucified carpenter had walked out of his own tomb, Saul did not see a harmless rumor. He saw blasphemy spreading like infection through the body of everything sacred to him. The law was clear in his mind. A man who died under a curse could not be the Messiah of Israel. And if these believers were wrong about that, they were not just mistaken. They were dangerous. That conviction is what put him in the crowd the day they dragged Stephen outside the city gates. Stephen, full of faith, had stood before the religious council and spoken with a boldness that infuriated them. When the stones began to fly, the men doing the throwing laid their cloaks at the feet of a sharp young Pharisee so he could watch without obstruction. Saul did not throw a single stone himself. He did not have to. He simply stood there and approved, while a man died praying for the very people killing him. Something in Saul did not flinch that day. If anything, it hardened. What followed was not a policy. It was a manhunt. Saul went from house to house, dragging believers, men, women, it did not matter, out into the street and into prison cells. He voted in favor of executions. He pursued Christians into synagogues across the region and tried to force them to curse the name of Jesus. He later described his own state of mind from those years in 3 words: breathing threats and murder. Not occasionally angry, not duty-bound and reluctant, breathing it the way the rest of us breathe air. And when he heard that some of the scattered believers had fled north to Damascus, he did not let the distance stop him. He requested official letters from the high priest, granting him authority to hunt them down in a foreign city and drag them back to Jerusalem in chains. He set out on the road, roughly 150 miles, completely certain that he was a man on a righteous mission. He had no idea that this road would be the last one he ever walked as that man. Somewhere outside the city, with no warning at all, the sky tore open. A light brighter than midday sun dropped him to the ground like a hand had shoved him. His companions stumbled backward, hearing something but unable to make out the words. Saul heard every word because the voice was speaking directly to him. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? He did not know who he was speaking to, but something in him already suspected, because his answer came out wrapped in a title he had no business using yet. Who are you, Lord? The reply was 4 words long, and it ended everything he thought he understood about his own life. I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting, not the one your prisoners follow, not the one you are fighting against in theory, the one you are persecuting, present tense, personal, direct. Every door Saul had kicked in, every family he had torn apart, every execution he had voted for, all of it landed on Jesus himself. The crucified man was alive. The blasphemers had been telling the truth the entire time, and Saul had spent years trying to exterminate them for it. He stood up from the dirt and discovered he could not see nothing. He had to be led by the hand into the very city he had ridden toward, with a list of names and a warrant of arrest. For 3 days he sat in the dark, neither eating nor drinking, while everything he had built his identity on came apart in his hands. He had been so certain. That certainty was the very thing now lying in ruins on the floor beside him. Which brings us back to Ananias. God spoke to him in a vision and told him exactly where to go. A house on Straight Street where a blind man named Saul of Tarsus was praying. Ananias did not pretend to be brave about it. He told God plainly what he already knew, that this man had done immense harm to believers in Jerusalem and had come to Damascus with the legal power to do the same here. It was not a small objection. It was a man saying, "You are asking me to walk toward the person most likely to destroy me." And God's answer did not deny any of it. He simply said, "Go. This man is the instrument I have chosen." So Ananias went. He found the house. He found the most feared man in the region sitting on the floor, hollow, blind, and broken in a way that had nothing to do with his eyes. And instead of demanding an apology, instead of recounting what Saul had done to people Ananias loved, he placed his hands on him and said a single word that undid everything. Brother, not enemy, not prisoner, brother. Something like scales fell from Saul's eyes in that moment, and he could see again the room, the light, and the face of the man who had chosen to forgive him before he had ever asked for it. That is grace with a human face. Someone who had every reason to walk away, walking toward you instead. Saul was baptized that day. He ate. He stood up an entirely different man, and within days he was standing in the very synagogues he had once planned to terrorize, proclaiming that Jesus was the Son of God. The room did not know what to do with him. Neither did Jerusalem when he finally returned. The believers there had heard nothing about Damascus and assumed it was a trap until a man named Barnabas vouched for him, and the church reluctantly let him in. His preaching made him enemies fast in both cities. In Damascus, religious leaders set guards at every gate to kill him on his way out, so believers lowered him over the city wall at night in a woven basket. The man who once carried arrest warrants now smuggled out like cargo. In Jerusalem, opposition rose again within weeks, and for his own safety, he was sent home to Tarsus, where he disappeared from the record for years. No letters, no famous sermons, just a man being quietly remade somewhere. History wasn't watching. It was Barnabas who eventually went looking for him and brought him to Antioch, a booming, mixed city where Jews and Gentiles were worshiping side by side, and believers were, for the first time, being called Christians. There, the Holy Spirit set Saul and Barnabas apart for a mission, and the man who had once been sent out by the high priest to destroy the church was now sent out by the church itself to build it. What followed was over a decade of travel that would reshape the ancient world. Cyprus, Asia Minor, then across the sea into Philippi, Thessalonica, Athens, Corinth, Ephesus. He was stoned in one city and left for dead outside its walls, then got up and walked back in. He was beaten with rods and thrown into a Philippian jail, and at midnight, instead of cursing his captors, he sang. An earthquake shook the prison doors open, and by morning the jailer who had locked him up was being baptized with his entire household. He later summarized his own life with a list almost too painful to read aloud. Repeated beatings, 3 shipwrecks, hunger, exposure, constant danger from enemies and so-called friends alike, and on top of all of it, the daily ache of worrying over every church he had ever planted. He wrote letters to nearly all of them. Those letters would eventually make up roughly half of the New Testament, written by the one man in the early church who had once tried hardest to make sure there would be no church left to write to. His final years followed the same pattern as everything before: arrest, imprisonment, appeal, transfer. He was held for years in Caesarea, sent to Rome for trial as a Roman citizen, survived a brutal storm and shipwreck along the way, and once he finally arrived, spent more time under house arrest, still writing, still teaching, still unhindered even in chains. Tradition holds that he was released for a time, then arrested again when Nero turned on the Christian community in Rome. There would be no release this time. His last surviving words describe a man at peace with the ending. He had run the race, and he was ready for what came next. He was executed outside the city, the same kind of death he had once approved of for someone else's life. Here is the part of Paul's story easy to rush past. By every religious measure of his day, he was already a success before any of this happened. Devout family, elite education, flawless legal observance. If anyone on earth had earned their own righteousness, it was him. And he later called all of it worthless, rubbish in his own word. Next to the value of actually knowing Christ. That is not the language of a man padding his resume. That is the language of a man who finally understood that what he had spent his life building could not save him, and what he had spent his life destroying was never his enemy at all. So if you are sitting with a version of your own past you would rather not look at too closely, a season you caused damage in, a certainty you now regret, a list of people you owe an apology you have not figured out how to give, Paul is not a comfortable verse to skip past. He is proof that the worst chapter of a life is not always the final chapter, and that grace is often delivered by someone you least expect to extend it to you. If this story is new to you, or if it landed somewhere personal, tell me in one word in the comments where you're sitting with it right now. And if you know someone who is convinced their past has disqualified them for good, this might be the story to send them today.